I'm starting up the stream. Hello everyone, I'm TigerHawk3, and tonight is Halloween, and so I'm going to talk about horror movies, because that's scary, and that's Halloween. Boo. Um, so, first, first up, I'm going to talk about a movie called The Wraith. It's from the 80s. It's a little weird. It's not great. It's okay. It has like Charlie Sheen and some other people. Um, it's about a guy who died and then came back as a ghost, but not like a regular ghost. He's he like comes back with a swooshing light, like he's uh like a ball of light that leaves a trail like a Tron cycle over a desert road. And that part didn't make any sense, but it happened. And then, as you see, he has this weird suit, and he also has a Franchi Spaz 12 shotgun that was very popular in various movies in the 80s because it was like new back then, and it looks cool. Not pictured. I don't know why a ghost would look like this, but it did. He also had a car that was like cool, and I think he opened the hood at one point to show people, yeah, he could like interact with people. And there were like things in it, like a flux capacitor and blinking lights, and people were like, ooh. Yeah, it didn't make any sense as a movie, really. It was okay. So he gets killed, and he comes back, and then like I think he can manifest as, this apparition. But he can also be like a normal guy with some minor scarring, because like he was, murdered and stuff. So he couldn't come back as someone without scars apparently, but he could do this stuff. So sometimes he's a normal guy and he's like kind of hanging out with people, and sometimes he's this thing and he goes out for revenge against the gang that killed him and stuff. And I think he eventually, I don't remember if he fades away into nothing, returns back to his home planet of being a ghost, or if he just like permanently manifests as something. I don't remember. It was weird, and honestly not very good. But it was a thing. You can watch it if you want. There's like, the acting isn't terrible. The concept is just out there. So next, Bloodrayne is, I guess, technically a horror movie. Mostly a video game movie. But it's alright. It could be worse. It's not great. I would say the concept is better than the one for Wraith, but the acting is not. The director is kind of infamous. His name is Uwe Boll, and the way he made all these terrible video game movie adaptations is by like some tax loophole that got him government funding or something. So he was able to keep turning out these relatively high budget movies that were very critically not acclaimed, and not acclaimed by audiences either, or by anyone. So, but he made this one, and it's based on a video game called Bloodrayne. She's a vampire, and she does like action stuff. But it's a vampire, and that's very Halloween. So we're doing that. It's alright. I don't remember the exact plot of the movie, but it's this person, this vampire, and I think she starts, the movie starts, and she's like she's part of a circus or something. Like they injure her and then give her blood to drink, and then the injury goes away, and that's her thing. And I think she goes free, and some people are killed, and she has to fight stuff. It's actually not that bad. It's not a great movie, or a really good movie. It's okay. You could watch it if you want a kind of low watching effort movie about a vampire lady. It's fine. It's not like most terrible movie in the world. Stay away at all costs. Whatever. Oh, and it takes place in like medieval-ish ages, maybe 1600s or something. And I mention that because there's a sequel. Of course there's a sequel. Why wouldn't there be a sequel? If you're making a bad movie, you better have a sequel of that movie. So in this one, time has passed, but she's still around because she's a vampire and not a regular person. This time it's in the Wild West. And not the Wild Wild West, the Will Smith movie, which is actually good and funny, but just the Wild West. And there's like a gang or something, and she has to defeat them by being a vampire. I don't really remember it because it's not memorable, but it's okay. I watched it. Maybe at some point if someone's like, have you heard of these Bloodrayne movies? And I'll be like, yeah, I've seen those. They'll be like, really? Is it terrible? Nah. Did you remember it? No. And then if they want to like watch it, I'll be like, okay, it's fine. It's kind of it's 3 in the afternoon on Sunday, and you've already had lunch, and there's not really anything else to do quite at the moment, so this is on TV, and it's like, oh, okay. Alright, it's fine. There's a sequel to the sequel. Okay, not a sequel to the sequel, but an additional subsequent sequel in the series. As you might guess from the title, I just realized that this is cropped on the sides. It's not Bloodrayne, it's Bloodrayne, the third movie, the Third Reich. So in this one, time has once again passed, and in this movie, she must defeat the Nazis. I don't think there's anything else I can really say about it. It's alright. If you liked Bloodrayne and Bloodrayne 2 Deliverance or something, then you might also like Bloodrayne the Third Reich, in which Bloodrayne continues to be a vampire, and it's alright. It's not terrible. If you're bored, and I don't know, you could watch it if you want. What's next? Ooh, I think the one that's next is it? This one. Apologies for the sudden, very bright blast of white, but this particular page comes from a site that has like some, specifies an inline CSS style or something, and doesn't properly handle it. So the default Google Chrome image viewer, like when you just open an image in Google Chrome, it usually looks like this, centered and with a dark background, but this time it couldn't do anything, so you just get the old default style. But anyway, you might have heard some of these actors' names. Oh, that's not actually visible. There. Perfect. I love my production quality in this show. Anyway, Alone in the Dark has a reputation of being like the worst movie ever. And I don't mean like out of any movie that anyone has ever made on video of anything. I mean like a commercially produced movie that was supposed to be like good. And I think this one is also from Uwe, and it's also a video game adaptation. But I think this is not a bad movie. I think it's just misunderstood. and I will explain so that you can understand and maybe watch it. And I think I think all of these movies I saw on Tubi, which is Tubi TV, TUBITV.com, free with ads. So I think this one's still there, probably. So Alone in the Dark was a video game that came out in the 90s, and computer game from the 90s with very early primitive 3D graphics, in which you are a detective in the 1930s, and you're in a house with like scary haunted stuff and monsters, and you have to figure out how to leave, I think. I don't know if you have to just get out or figure out some mystery. Anyway, you walk around, and I think you attack monsters sometimes, but there's a lot of puzzle solving also, something like that. Pretty well looked on game. It's alright. And then in the mid 2000s, like 2005 or 2010, somewhere around there, they made a sequel. And I don't know why they made it a sequel. It was like they had a different game planned, but then they got the IP for Alone in the Dark, and they decided that they would do that. Like, let's use this, so let's tie it in, and I don't know. So in the Alone in the Dark 2, I don't know if it's just called Alone in the Dark again. I don't know. But you play an irreverent, kind of downright disrespectful, like, biker dude who doesn't remember who he is, and yeah. And you explore around town, and something weird is happening. And this might be spoilers, by the way. If you plan on playing the game, you probably shouldn't. It's bad. But so this game is actually like a horror survival action adventure thing where you have to like drive around. There's driving sequences that are really, really bad, and shoot stuff and whatever, and use like healing items. But it's Alone in the Dark, so they decided that they had to have a tie-in to the original game. This new game takes place like modern times, 2000 something, but they tied it into the original game, which takes place in the 30s, and the main character is the same. And this is why this movie is misunderstood, because in order to make the sequel, they decided that they had to keep the main character the same after almost 100 years. So he has this weird thing where he like sees a newspaper clipping of himself, but it's from a while ago, and he's like, how did this happen? And there's all manner of weird retcon things that have to happen because of that, and so that doesn't make any sense. Alone in the Dark is based on that. So it's just being true to the source material, which was poorly done. And I'm not saying that their truthfulness was poorly done. I'm saying that the source material was poorly done. So this, Christian Slater and Tara Reid, I've heard of those. They're pictured there. Stephen Dorff I haven't really heard of outside of this. But they had like a budget and they did stuff. So this movie is based on an action adventure horror game, which was a sequel, a poorly connected sequel to an old style puzzle horror game. And they did what they could. So it's kind of a horror movie, but at one point there's also a scene where there's like a bunch of monsters because it's a horror movie, and they have to defeat them, but not by like running away and jump scares and stuff. They have like machine guns, and there's like rock music playing in the background. That's the soundtrack for that scene. And that is definitely an action thing. I guess it's a bit like Aliens 2. Yes, I just compared Alone in the Dark to Aliens 2, because Alien was definitely just a horror movie where there's one scary alien wandering around the ship, and they're terrified and they have to figure out how to survive. And Aliens, sorry, it's not Aliens 2, it's Alien and then Aliens. So Aliens, the sequel, has plural. There's many aliens, and so it's like a more action, war, combat stuff. Action, war, combat, fight. So Alone in the Dark is kind of like that, but in one movie. So it has to take some of the horror elements from the games, and also the main character is somehow ancient element from the games, and also action. And I think it does that. So if you go into this movie knowing that it's based on a giant mess, and it's being true to that mess, then I think they did a good job with that. It's very watchable. The action scene that I mentioned is actually really entertaining with cool music, and you might want to watch it. It's not that bad, especially now that you are forewarned and forearmed. And unsurprisingly, there is a sequel. Now I have to move this back to the center. All right. I didn't like this one as much as the first one. It's more horror-based, and there was some evil guy a long time ago who was like hunting witches or something. One of those very memorable movies, right? And so this time there's like a detective or something who's trying to investigate what's going on and figure it out and survive with a few people to have dialogue with. It's alright. And I think there's action in there also. It's alright. The first one was better. The machine guns and the rock, or I think was more metal music. How long have I been going? 17 minutes. This one can be shorter. What's next? This is sort of a horror movie. Kind of. But it is also largely a comedy. So in this movie, Tucker and Dale are hillbillies, meaning they're poor and not very well educated, and that's about it. They live in the South or the Appalachians or something, and so in the movie, one of them has just saved up enough for a vacation home, and this vacation home is I want to say broken down, but it's a lot more than broken down. It's a shack that's almost in pieces in the middle of a swamp, but he bought it, and it's his, and he's very proud, so he wants to fix it up with his friend's help. And so they go to the general store and they get supplies, and there's also a group of yuppies, young rich kids who are on vacation from college or something, and they are also for some reason camping very near this summer home, vacation home, whatever. And they are terrified by the hillbillies because, as you can see, fixing up a shack requires lots of tools, like a chainsaw and axes and a big ol' scythe, I don't know. And so on top of being a horror movie, the kind of odd thing that happens in the movie is that the hillbillies appear scary, and the college kids are scared of them, and they're so scared that they aren't cautious enough and end up dying in freak accidents, like one by one. Like one of them is running away from one of the hillbillies because the hillbilly is wielding a chainsaw and like and screaming because he accidentally cut into a beehive. So he's trying to run away from the bees. And the college kid is running away from this, thinking that it's just a like crazy hillbilly trying to kill him because, you know, horror movies, and doesn't look where he's going and runs into a large tree branch which impales him, and then he dies. And this sort of thing happens like over and over again. And so on top of horror and comedy, it's also about overcoming prejudices and stuff. Because the hillbillies are actually not like murderers; they're nice guys, and it hurts their feelings when people assume that they're bad people just because they don't look rich and fancy. So that's another movie worth watching. What else? I think I have one more. Yes. Jack Brooks' Monster Slayer. It's alright. It's somewhere between action and comedy. A little more with the action, not very much comedy. Low budget. I spent most of the movie waiting for it to start. So anyway, in this movie, an ancient evil is unleashed and takes over the person who unleashed it and becomes a demon with like, and he's big and he has this big mouth and he eats people and he has tentacles and whatever. As you can see in the poster here, where the tentacles are being attacked and stuff. So the main character is always angry at things because when he was a kid, he was on a camping trip and his parents were eaten by monsters, and he hid and wasn't eaten by a monster. And so he became very angry at everything all the time. And it turns out that he's angry about having to run away from the monsters because monsters don't exist. Everybody knows that. So he's just like angry for no reason that anyone can understand. And then this, monster takes over the guy's body, the demon, whatever, with the thing. And then this is Jack Brooks' time. It's his day in the sun. It happens at night, mostly. So he then has to harness his anger at monsters and attack this monster because he's so mad about what happened when he was a kid that he's just gonna be brave and go do what has to be done. He is also a plumber, as you can see from the pipe and the pipe wrench. He's actually a plumber. So he does that, and he's a monster slayer. I thought it was going to be about being a monster slayer rather than the path to becoming a monster slayer, because the very beginning of the movie shows him in some random village somewhere fighting or about to fight a monster whom the villagers which the villagers contacted him to deal with, because that's his thing now. And then it goes back and says, how did this come to be? Well, he was a kid, and then there were demons that killed his parents, and then he killed a demon later, and he found he was good at it, so now he does this for a living. Sort of. It's okay. It's a little slow at times, and I was kind of confused about whether the movie had really gotten going or not. But it was it was okay. Not terrible. So I think that will be it for my special spooky Halloween stream about Halloween stuff. And I hope you enjoyed it, because you can't really trick or treat nowadays. A whole bunch of strangers taking candy from a whole bunch of other strangers, and everyone sharing the food items, and can't do that at all. I don't know why there's Halloween candy displays in all the stores. Not happening. Anyway, hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Have a good one.